Hello, everyone. I am Matt Williamson. How's everyone doing? I hope great. I'm psyched up for vacation. Getting ready to do that here soon, but I am planning on giving you 2 podcasts this week, starting with this one, and opened up the mailbag as we often do, and many good questions flew right in. Otto asks, is there a risk that within 5 years, there will be fewer and fewer high-end collegiate recruits because the special talents are going to switch to higher valued positions with longer career prospects? If your kid was an uber talented junior high running back, would you want him to stay at running back? I think the second question is better than the first. Not better, but I mean, it's more relevant than the first. If I'm 6'6" and I'm 330 pounds, I'm not going to switch to receiver. There's certain positions and body types that just aren't going to go together. You know what I mean? You don't have a ridiculous number of options. I'm sure most guards wanted to be a left tackle, but couldn't or weren't allowed, or you know what I'm saying? However, I got 2 things to say on this with the running back stuff. I think we're already seeing it, to be honest with you, that high-end running backs might consider position changes, maybe even sport changes. I don't know. Could they play soccer or something like that? I don't know. I mean, basketball probably isn't an option for most running back body types. But along those lines, you might enjoy this. So when I was recruiting with Pitt for those 3 years, and as well as the year I did with Akron, when we recruited kids, and this was a million years ago, and obviously there's not NIL and all that kind of stuff too, but there were recruiting classes when the rules at the time, you were allowed to bring in 25 scholarship players. 25 scholarships to give every year. If you had room, you could give out 25 scholarships to incoming freshmen. There were years when we gave 5 of those to running backs. Why? Well, it wasn't like we were deceiving the kids, but we knew some of those, smaller 190-pound burner running backs might end up at corner, might end up at safety. A lot of them ended up at linebacker. They had a feel for offenses and running games. So that's an old recruiting trick method, over the years that mostly, especially in those days, the best players got the football. So you're plucking the best players off their high school team and maybe their region or their area of the country, and only one guy can carry the ball. You know what I mean? Like, small example, there was a young man from Pittsburgh named Andrew Johnson, I think his name was. He went to Central Catholic, and he was heavily recruited. When I was at Pitt, he was super fast, ran like 4.2, 4.3, little undersized. And we wanted him bad at Pitt. He was really good in high school, as you can imagine. And he went to the U when they were the U, because he could. I mean, it was a premium program. And the U recruited him saying, we have this amazing history that if you can be a 1-year starter, if we redshirt you and you have 4 other years, you have 5 years to become the starter at the U, I can almost promise you, you're going to be a very high pick, potentially a first rounder, a millionaire, an NFL player. And here's all the examples. Okay. So young Andrew Johnson goes to Miami and quickly realizes, he looks around the room, and there's Willis McGahee, and there's Portis, and there's Frank Gore. You know what I'm saying? And he was like 7th on the depth chart. And before you know it, he was playing corner. I mean, so I'm pretty sure how that went. But that's not uncommon. But Otto, back to your point, I think so. But it's not like in this sport, you can just say, well, running back's not a good investment. I'm going to go be a tight end, or I'm going to learn how to throw the football. Maybe you would say, I'm going to try to be a big power Debo receiver, or a linebacker, or a strong safety. Yes, but it's not like strong safeties' lives are that much better either. But I do think you have a point here. And in an ever-changing world, it's gotten smaller and smaller. Mama doesn't want their kids to grow up to be running backs. I mean, I think that's the bottom line. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NBA, and NHL playoffs. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet online, where the game starts. Corey asks, is wide receiver 2 really that big of an issue for this offense? Steelers, of course. Or is it getting blown out of proportion? Both, but I still think it's not getting blown out of proportion. I lean towards it's still a gaping hole, massive need. Now, I'm sure where you're going with this, and other people have talked along these lines and asked me these questions, is the Steelers are at the top of the league in 11 personnel the last couple of years with 3 receivers on the field, and Arthur Smith's at the bottom of the league. And they're going to run the ball so much, and they're going to use tight ends, and Freiermuth's the 2. Okay, but eventually it's going to be 3rd and 8. Here's the biggest thing. What if Pickens gets hurt? Or what if Pickens doesn't take a step forward? He's not Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill yet or ever, or definitely now. You're putting a lot of stock that this player is going to be a dominant wide receiver, which he might be. But even if he is, they're still short. I really think you have a 2 who could turn into a 1 and a bunch of 4s. Well, that doesn't add up to what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Let alone injuries. And I'm sure some of those 4s, maybe it's Calvin Austin or Wilson, steps up huge and we get super excited about him by opening day. I think that one of those guys will absolutely fit that bill. Still leaves me a little short. I think they know it. I think they will add somebody. I just think that the market has not gone exactly how they've wanted. And I also think they're picking and choosing. We got one more to add. Who's the one that's going to be, and is it the right price? And we know that Omar is very patient in this regard. So I do not think it's getting blown out of proportion. But it is less of a problem than if it was 1 year ago or 5 years ago. Along those lines, David asked, does Arthur Smith have a history of using 1 receiver sets as a regular part of his offense? Feels like we could see Freiermuth, Washington, and Hayward out there together in some packages. Yes, and I would throw Pruitt in there as well, who comes over from Atlanta and has experience doing exactly that as well. I do think you'll see a fair share of 13 personnel, 1 back, 3 tight ends, 1 receiver, Pickens, especially, back to Corey's question, if no one else is added. If you had Ayuk or Debo or Metcalf, then that would go down drastically. You'd have at least those 2 receivers on the field a high percentage of the time. But teams that lead the league in 13 personnel, David, it's 8%, maybe 12%. It's not going to be a foundation. It's not going to be the staple of your offense. It's going to be a chapter. It's going to be something that, Hayward and Freiermuth could be detached and moved around. Washington could as well, but he needs to prove that first. And 13 personnel causes problems because do I want to play base defense against that? If it was against the Steelers defense, would I line up in my true 3-4 against that? Well, if I go to nickel, I'm probably going to get pushed around because they have a lot of beef on the field. So it does present matchup problems. And I would expect to see 13 personnel early in games because then Arthur Smith will be like, okay, well, they're going to match nickel to our 13. They're going to match, it won't be dime, but we're going to match base to our 13. We think we can run the ball out of that, or we think we can get matchups in the passing game. So I think it'll be part of the mix without question, especially after adding Pruitt, which doesn't seem like much, but it basically guarantees that they're going to keep 4 tight ends, the 3 you mentioned, and Pruitt, and maybe they call Hayward a fullback, but it doesn't matter. And usually they keep 3. So I think they plan on putting those guys on the field more. This is interesting to me, is Michael Bradley asks, do you think some of what's going on with Hayward is because he's such a leader within the Players Association and he has to lead by example even though he's not really his personality? I think there's a lot there. Well, there might be nothing there. I think Cam Hayward has a responsibility without question to the Players Association. I mean, he just won Walter Payton Man of the Year, which is a prestigious honor. And he is a veteran and wants players for years to come to have it better than him, as he's had it better than those before him. You know what I mean? I think he probably understands that responsibility. I think he also has an extremely strong relationship with the coaching staff, the organization, the city, his teammates. But more than anything, he has responsibility to himself. So whatever is most important to him and his family, whether that's money, whether that's staying in town, whether that's building something for players for years to come as best he possibly can, that's what he should do, as any of us should, obviously, in whatever choices we make, But deep down, I just think that before you know it, he's going to get a year or two added to his deal, and it's not going to be in Chris Jones' insane money. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think he or the organization has any intentions of playing the game through Twitter and the media and all that. But if it gets to be negotiation time, you got to put up your best fight or your best front to say, hey, I do have options here. If they're not going to meet my needs, I know somebody will. I mean, Calais Campbell just signed with the Dolphins a couple days ago. They're not equal players, and Campbell's older, and he's more of a journeyman at this point, but people would kill to get Cam Hayward. I mean, still, there's no question. But he's such a leader within the organization. I'll put every chip down that I own that he'll never wear a different jersey than a Pittsburgh Steeler one. I just think that that's too good a fit. That's how the organization works. They go in even starting with like Joe Green. I mean, you hand it down to the next guy and you hand it down to the next guy and you keep that tradition going. And Cam's the biggest leader on the team and one of the most important players. And I don't think his financial demands will be insane. Plus they have the money. So that's how I think that all goes down. One more podcast coming to you tomorrow, and then I'm hitting the beach. As I mentioned, if some massive news hits from the beach, I'll probably jump off in the corner of the room and record something just for fun, because I want to talk through it anyway. But I think it's going to be a pretty quiet time here for these next couple of weeks. I mean, football is done for a while. We will not be seeing football stuff until Latrobe, which is kind of fun, but it's also, I'm kind of anxious for Latrobe. More anxious for the beach at the time, though. All right, take care, everyone. See you.